Hi everyone, I am Georgette Turkson and welcome to SageAdvice, a brand new series where we dive into inspiring conversations with exceptional leaders across our company. Together, we will discuss career journeys, lessons learned, and share valuable advice for young professionals. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Colin Smith, our incredible Chief Operating Officer. As COO, Colin plays a key role in driving SageSure's growth, including raising over 800 million in investor capital. He started his career in investment banking before making what he calls his Jerry Maguire moment, a bold pivot into the world of nonprofit. He then spent close to a decade leading Change for Kids, positively impacting the lives of thousands of students. Outside of SageSure, he also serves on the boards of Streetwise Partners and the Congregational Church of New Canaan. Hi, Colin. Welcome to Sage Advice. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Georgette. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Very excited to talk to you. I truly think you're one of the aspirational leaders I know, both in and outside of the boardroom. So excited to have this conversation about success, leadership, lessons from adversity, as well as advice for young professionals. So before we jump into our main questions, I hear you're a huge fan of karaoke. So I'm curious to know what your go-to karaoke song is.
Yeah, it is. The answer is, if you've ever seen the musical Hamilton, I do a mean rendition of My Shot. It's an incredibly self-indulgent thing because it's about 6 minutes long, and it's certainly unorthodox. But I have very little musical talent. My wife was a really amazing musical theater kid. My sister was an aspiring Broadway actress, so they actually have musical talent. But I really crush that song. So it's my contribution to the family.
No, that's an amazing choice. I've heard so much about Hamilton and I definitely need to get into it. So sort of, starting this conversation, I would love to begin with your career journey. You began as an investment banker first at Bank of America Securities and then went on to Atlantic Pacific Capital before pivoting into the world of nonprofits as the CEO and Executive Director of Change for Kids. And then now you are here at SageSure serving as the Chief Operating Officer. Looking back at those decisions, how did you decide which opportunities to say yes to and which ones to pass on?
Yeah, I think that I've always looked at where I believe that I can make the biggest impact as a human. And I think that comes in two forms. What difference could you make? What is the opportunity? And how likely are you to win at that opportunity? Are you set up with the resources? Are you set up with the capabilities that you're going to need to succeed? And I think in each of the steps that I've looked at, that has been an overarching theme for me. So in the case of Change for Kids, this was an organization that was really going to be challenged to continue without major intervention. It was a stage in my life where I felt like because I didn't have a family, I could come in and really make a big difference. I thought my skill set would be helpful for it. I thought my relationships would be helpful for it. I thought that it was a noble cause that deserved to be able to win. And I felt I was set up to succeed. So that was why I made the choice with Change for Kids. It was unorthodox. I worked in banking, investment banking. But that was a really cool challenge that I thought I could make an impact in. Then fast forward to SageSure, we had built a successful organization at Change for Kids. I felt that I'd made a real impact there. And then I looked at SageSure. I knew Terry from both of us working at Change for Kids. He was the treasurer on the board when I was the CEO of the organization. I believed in Terry. I saw the organization and its potential growth perspective or possibilities. And it seemed like something that, with my background in finance, banking, strategy, desire to help build things, it felt like something where I can make a big impact. And so those are two things. When I look at it, those are two examples of when I look at opportunities. Can I make a bigger impact than I already am with things? And what does that impact look like if I go make it?
That's very inspiring to hear that impact is a huge factor in choosing which opportunities to go for. Sort of zooming into your experience, pivoting into Change for Kids, like you mentioned, you're an investment banker and now you're going into an entirely different world. How did you have to adapt into that role, and how did that also shape you into the leader you are today?
When I look at that experience, it was a small nonprofit, and that meant that I had to own every aspect of it. I had no background leading people before that. I was a young guy, I was 27 years old at the time. I'm thrown into an organization. This is, remember, late 2008, early 2009, when the entire financial world in New York City in particular had effectively collapsed. So you're trying to go out to raise funds from a city that has just been put on its back in a lot of ways, with an organization that only has a few months of survival
Yeah.
that it's facing at this stage, but it's doing something really critically important for kids who are going to suffer if we can't get it right. So that taught me what it means to have a lot of responsibility. I felt that
Yeah.
every day on my back. It helped me understand what it means to deal with pressure. It helped me understand what it meant to serve effectively as a leader, because I had a bunch of people whose jobs, a bunch of people whose kids were looking to us and were looking to me for leadership. I had a board that was looking to me for leadership, and I had to act effectively. So I think it taught me how to deal with pressure
Yeah.
tremendously well. On a micro level, I was a pretty bad public speaker before I started that job. It's one of those things my father and I talked a lot about, and that was not an option. You cannot be a nonprofit leader going out to raise funds and trying to make an impact and not be at least decently effective as a speaker. So it was one of those things that was a skill set at a micro level that I had to learn, and I really appreciate.
Yeah, that's very amazing that it wasn't just, a role that you were in, but it feels like a very transformational part of your career journey. So you mentioned that through your experience at Change for Kids, you built a lot of relationships that led you to being the COO at SageSure. So for young professionals out there who are just starting out their career journey, what would be your advice to them in how to build a network that feels authentic?
First suggestion that I have for folks as a young professional when they're figuring out their career and sort of on the start of their journey, you want to make sure you ask good questions. And I think that's a critical thing. A lot of times you'll see I have folks who I want to be able to help will come into a conversation, and I think they aren't necessarily thinking ahead of time, here's my goal for the conversation, and here are questions that I think will stimulate the person on the other side so that I can glean information that I need to be successful, and that will make this worthwhile for them and for myself. So I think being able to ask good questions is really important as a skill set in general, but particularly for someone who's young and young in their career and trying to network. That's critical, an engaging question that you are actually going to be able to pull value from the conversation. That would be my first thing. And by the way, I think is something that works in general for relationships. Think about friends that you're with. Think about being at a dinner table with someone who's just talking about themselves the entire time versus asking questions about you. So I think asking good questions helps build relationship and helps you take a huge amount out of the conversation. Beyond questions, it's a similar mindset, which is proactivity. So knowing in advance, this is where I want to go. The more concrete you can make a goal of where it is that you want to go for your career, I think you can better target conversations with individuals and then the content of those conversations. By which I mean, a lot of times I'll have folks when they're starting off who they'll be like, I want to be successful, or can you help me get a job, or can you help me, find the next career path or the next step in my career path. That's hard sitting on the other side of it versus think about how much easier it is if someone comes to you and says, I, my entire life, have wanted to work in sports marketing for the NFL. That is exactly what I want to do. I love marketing. I love football. Anything I could do to ultimately get into the NFL and do experiential events with the NFL, that's my dream job. Well, guess what? Now I can give you a whole lot more guidance about the steps towards that. And I can think about who I might know in my network who is into events or is into football. And we could start much more easily tailoring out a future for what that looks like, and I can be much more helpful. So I think granularity of understanding where you want to go is super critical for building a network and for someone who's starting off their career. And I know that sounds, a lot of people don't look at that question or sort of career path and they're like, oh, the world's going to take me where it's going to take me, and I don't want to think more than a couple years ahead. That's not how I work, and I just don't think you can be as effective. Other people can't be as effective in helping you if you don't have better clarity on where you want to go.
Yeah, that's great advice to, first of all, ask great questions and also knowing what you want to achieve in the long term. And that helps you to sort of tailor out and seek out the right people that will help you get there. Yeah. So we usually, hear about the career highlights, but every career journey has its challenges. I would love for you to take us back to moments where you faced a setback very early on in your career, and how did that, what lessons did you um, get from that experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. I am tremendously proud of what we accomplished at Change for Kids. We, as an organization, I worked my tail off for 8 years for that place, and we made a really, really big impact. We grew 30% a year every single year, wound up helping 5,000 students a year, and it was in a great place when I walked away. At that stage in my life, I'd been there for 8 years. My wife and I wanted to start a family. I knew that it made sense to move to another opportunity, and I was like, man, we have had just so much success with this place. It's going to be great. Well, I did not have enough scalability that was built internally. I thought we had it. I thought we had it with the board. I thought we had it with the team that we had around us. Instead, I think it struggled after I left because I hadn't built that as successfully as I should have. And I take that with me here a lot. I think it's something that I'm working on right now. I think in general that is important is how is the organization under me? Do I have leaders who I feel confident can step up if I go on a trip? If something negative happened to me, I won't use the hit by a bus thing. I guess I just did. But any of the sort of negative connotations. But I think that's what leadership is that you feel like you've built an organization that's going to scale well after you. And I feel really amazing about that when I look at the organization we have. I have so many incredible folks within my team. I've got Maria Scharf. You've got Kevin Scully. You've got Kim Brownstein. You go down the list. I could list 10 people on my team who I just feel like are tremendous leaders themselves. And it's my job to be able to coach them to a place where I can feel comfortable to work on something else or step away or whatever, and we're not going to have a drop off. I'm not there totally. That's something I always want to work on, but that's a major goal for me and something that I took from Change for Kids.
Yeah, that's amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that with us, and being vulnerable to admit that, yes, you feel that doing this, but these are the lessons I took from that experience, and this is what making me a better leader at SageSure. What's beautiful about all these pivots and challenges you faced is the fact that it led you to SageSure. So 8 years into this role, what keeps you excited about the industry, especially at SageSure?
Yeah, I think it's that we've just barely tapped into, I guess, the top of the iceberg of what we can accomplish here. I'm incredibly excited about where we are as an organization. We've obviously built, when I joined, we had about 250 million in written premium, and now we'll be over 3 billion. We have over 3 billion in force right now. So we've grown a ton. But when you look at it, the markets that we're in 16 states, got a lot more than 16 states in this country. You've got a lot more than one country. You've got a lot of inland within those markets that we're in. We are over 10% market share in one of those, Louisiana, but almost every other state, we're a sub 5, sub 3% market share player in most of those. This is a massive $1 trillion industry. And I think we're just touching the surface of what we can accomplish as an organization. That to me is incredibly exciting because what
Yeah.
we've built is awesome, and yet we have a huge amount of runway and a huge amount of things that we do that we could be doing a whole lot better. I know everyone in this organization knows it, but from an efficiency standpoint, from a collaboration standpoint, there are so many things that we can be doing to be more effective as an org. And I want to be at a place where we're growing a ton and I can still make an impact. And I feel that's the case here at SageSure.
Yeah, I agree. I think the possibilities are endless. One exciting, thing happening at SageSure is the introduction of the rotational programs, the rotational innovation associate program. Why do you think young professionals, especially who are interested in insurance, should join a program such as this?
I think you want to be in a position at the start of your career where you are able to get a broad set of experiences that allow you to have exposure to the way that different aspects of an organization work. And so being able to come in a program like this and learn about strategy, learn about finance, learn about claims, learn about a lot of the different aspects, operational aspects of an organization, strategic aspects, financial aspects, I think that allows you to be much more productive in your career. I mentioned that Change for Kids experience where I had a really broad remit because you're a small org, and I had to do everything from the bookkeeping, review of books on the financial end, to managing a board member, to going out and selling, i.e.
Yeah.
fundraising, to data. There are so many aspects of that. As COO of the organization, I have a broad remit right now, but it was even broader years ago. Think about it, when we were at 250, I had all of my existing orgs, and I had HR, program ops, data, a ton of carrier ops, a bunch of additional things, even beyond the existing remit. Now, we've since hired amazing folks to go manage those and oversee those, but all of that was under one umbrella. And I think that experience of having had broad exposure to all the different components of an organization have meant that I'm much more capable now to diagnose strategic opportunities, to serve the place much better. So earlier in your career, having that exposure just allows you to connect the dots, I think, so much better, and makes you much more effective when you inevitably do specialize later in your career.
I agree. I think 6 months into the program, I'm learning so much about not only the industry, who our customers are, what the life cycle is, and identifying opportunities to add value at SageSure.
Good.
So, yeah. And to wrap up and in the spirit of sage advice, what would you say your golden rule for a fulfilling career is?
I don't know who said it, but I heard this statement at some point that you want to have relentlessness in pursuit of a noble cause. And that line has always really stuck with me because and the way I operate. I think you want to have a vision of where you want to go. It should be a vision, that place where you want to go, that is compelling, that is exciting. I think ideally that serves a real purpose for society. So if you have that sort of noble cause vision of where it is that you want to go, then I think you pair that with something that I've always felt deeply, which is this relentless pursuit of winning and
Yeah.
achieving that goal. I think that's something that I've spoken about before. I am probably the most self-analytical person that you know. I will leave this conversation and I will want to watch the recording that Andy sends me 20 times. I'm going to diagnose every and I will diagnose every response, and I will try to get better the next time that I do one of these. And I think that's how I've always been. It's just you continually want to get better and better at something. You want to relentlessly pursue what it is that you're trying to achieve. So that's why that statement of relentless pursuit of a noble cause, that has always been the golden rule for me.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's solid advice. So, Colin, thank you so much again for sitting with me and having this conversation. I definitely took away a lot of lessons, a lot of advice, and I'm sure anyone who's listening to this as well will find this very valuable.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity and everything that you're doing for SageSure, Georgette.